My name is Paul Vallone, and you are listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom today on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7, WilmingtonBigTalker.com, where each Sunday at 5, as part of the Sunday Night Political Power Block, we give you the ammunition to better defend your gun rights. Today, we are broadcasting live from Las Vegas at the SHOT Show, which stands for Shooting, Hunting, and Outdoor Trade Show, the world's biggest gun show, where I hope to encounter many of the newer products that gun manufacturers are introducing, as well as notable figures in the gun rights movement, and also professional shooters to perhaps pick up a few tips on how I can better compete. Before we begin, please allow me to thank our sponsor, Hyatt Guns, America's largest gun shop. Check them out at hyattguns.com. In case you aren't familiar with me, I direct Grassroots North Carolina, or GRNC, since 1994, our state's most effective gun rights organization. As its director, I was involved in drafting and passing our original concealed handgun law. Since then, GRNC has gone on to engineer passage of concealed handgun reciprocity, our purchase permit bypass, Castle Doctrine and Stand Your Ground, the expansion of concealed carry into state and municipal parks, restaurants, public assemblies, educational properties, and much more. Grassroots North Carolina is exactly what the name implies, a grassroots collection of people from all walks of life who share a common concern that our constitutionally guaranteed freedoms are being eroded. Check us out at grnc.org. That's grnc.org. As you just heard a moment ago, parts of today's show were taped at the world's largest gun show, namely the Shooting, Hunting, and Outdoor Trade Show, commonly known as the SHOT Show, in Las Vegas. In this and upcoming shows, we will bring you exciting news and interviews from the show. In the second segment of today's show, for example, I had the good fortune to interview Maj Toure, a solutionary hip-hop artist and founder of a new urban-oriented gun rights organization, Black Guns Matter. As I mentioned in our last show, the SHOT Show is vast, occupying multiple floors and halls of the Sands Expo and Convention Center, and even spilling into the Venezia and Palazzo hotels. SHOT is the Paris Air Show of gun shows, a place where governments and law enforcement agencies mingle with manufacturers and distributors and sign big, sometimes multi-million-dollar contracts for military and law enforcement branches. Generally held in Las Vegas, the show spans 4 days and encompasses more than 1,800 manufacturers of guns and accessories and outdoor gear, including all of the major gun makers, many of which set up huge walk-in displays. For photos and video of the event, I'd suggest you check out my Facebook page, Guns, Politics, and Freedom, on Facebook. The bad news is the SHOT Show isn't open to the public. In theory, it's only open to gun dealers, law enforcement and military, gun-related media, and a few others. That said, however, this show was expected to draw 65,000 attendees, so clearly lots of people are finding a way to attend. Your best bet, if you want to go there, is to cozy up with the guy from your gun club who has an FFL, a federal firearms license, or perhaps your local gun dealer. Thanks to my freelance writing and radio work, my wife and I attend on journalist credentials, although, as I've said before, if you ever want to get truly dirty looks, wear media credentials to a gun show. We spent a full 2 days touring a show, and despite some severe foot and leg pain, we didn't even come close to seeing the whole thing. One of the things we did finish seeing, however, were the entries for our quest for the perfect carry gun. And on this, in a few moments, I would like to announce our winner. As you might surmise, I'm a religious concealed carrier. Personally, I've always carried single-stack guns because the double-column magazines of high-capacity handguns make them fatter and they print under clothing. That changed after the San Bernardino shootings, when they made it obvious that Islamic terrorism could easily be coming to a shopping center near you, And in fact, in an interview with Tom Gresham of Gun Talk, he and I both lamented the fact that we would have to abandon our beloved single-stack 1911s for additional magazine capacity in case one encounters what I call an impromptu concert by the rockers known as Jihadi Johnny and the Intifada. So Lori and I started carrying customized versions of the Smith & Wesson M&P 9 Compact, which is about the size of a Glock 26, but it carries 12 plus 1 rounds of 9mm. So began my love-hate relationship with a gun. Having carried it now for nearly 3 years, I love what it does. Together with 2 spare magazines, I carry 37 rounds of 9mm ammunition and can bump that to 47 rounds if I carry spare magazines for a full-size M&P 9, which of course also fit the gun. What I hate is the blockiness of that gun inside my waistband. Trust me, I've looked for alternatives. As single-stack guns, the M&P Shield and the Glock 43 lack magazine capacity. Ditto for the wonderful Kahr products, my first carry gun, by the way, for 10 plus years, after we passed concealed carry in 1995, was a Kahr K9. But when I look at double-stack competitors like the Glock 26 or the very cool H&K VP9SK or even the new Walther PPQ SC, what I find is invariably a size that's equal to or larger than my M&P Compact, but also has magazine capacities of only 10 rounds, 2 rounds shy of my M&P. Well, then Smith & Wesson abandoned me. When it introduced its excellent 2.0 version of the M&P pistols, the compact M&P 9 grew in size to that of a Glock 19. Now, don't get me wrong. The Glock 19 is a great gun and a great size, and I intend to get an M&P 9 Compact, the new one, the larger one, especially for use in my bug-out bag and for defensive gun courses. But it is a much larger gun than the present M&P 9C and doesn't lend itself well to concealed carry as I prefer it, namely under light clothing. Otherwise, it will print under light clothing. So, even as I got jilted by Smith & Wesson, and by the way, I let their reps know it at the show, I have been seduced by a new and sexy bell named, appropriately enough, the SIG 365. SIG sprang this one just days before the show, so late in fact that it isn't featured in their 2018 catalog. But imagine this. A gun the size and thickness of an M&P Shield or a Glock 43, but with a capacity of 10 or even 12 rounds. Now, as a disclaimer, although I've handled the gun, or perhaps fondled it would be a better description, at the show, I have not yet managed to wrangle an invitation to the highly limited media SHOT Show day at the range, meaning I haven't shot it yet. But this gun handles in an understated perfection that says, of course, what do you mean? Other guns aren't like this? By virtue of a 1.5 stack magazine, it is under the magic 1 inch in thickness, carries 10 rounds with a flush-fitting magazine, yet I could get all of my hand, even the pinky finger, onto the grip, suggesting exquisite control under recoil. Better yet, you can get optional 12-round magazines, which blend with the gun's very nice grips, and to make the gun only 1/3 of an inch taller than my 12-round M&P 9C. Translated, with a flush-fitting mag in the gun plus 2 12-rounders in the pouch, I can have 35 rounds on my belt, or I can insert yet another 12-round magazine into the gun, giving me 37 rounds, all in a package which is smaller and thinner than my present carry gun. I'm in love. Unfortunately, I'm willing to bet that the SIG 365 will have many thousands of other suitors, and SIG's product manager for the gun, Phil Strader, says that SIG is already shipping the 365, which I see listed, albeit as out of stock, at around $500 by a number of online gun dealers. So I'll let you know when I actually receive one and get a chance to shoot it. By all appearances, in the race for what concealed carry advocates truly appear to want, a polymer, read that light, striker-fired, read that simple, highly concealable 9mm pistol, SIG has listened to us and accordingly won the race. Right now, you are listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7, wilmingtonbigtalker.com. Right now, we are going to take a short break, after which we will resume with solutionary hip-hop artist and gun rights advocate Maj Toure and his new group, Black Guns Matter. My name is Paul Vallone, and you are listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom today on Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7 wilmingtonbigtalker.com, sponsored by Hyatt Gun Shop, America's largest gun shop. Check them out at hyattguns.com. One of the things we as gun rights advocates should be concerned about is spreading the message of freedom in order to ensure that future generations carry the torch. If we become just a few strident voices in the wilderness of collectivism, I can assure you that we will eventually lose. It might take a few years, perhaps even a few generations, but if future generations and diverse ethnic groups don't understand that the freedom they exercise is intrinsically linked to the individual right to keep and bear arms, all will eventually be lost. It's no secret that minorities tend to vote Democrat and support gun control. That's not to say we don't have a Clarence Thomas in the Supreme Court or columnists and university professors like Walter Williams and Thomas Sowell or the NRA's own Colin Noir. But I would argue that even these articulate voices have not been effective at spreading the word of freedom into urban communities. Now enter solutionary hip-hop artist and Second Amendment advocate Maj Toure, who recently founded Black Guns Matter, and whom I was fortunate to interview at the SHOT Show in Las Vegas. That interview follows. On Guns, Politics, and Freedom today, we are recording from Las Vegas and the 40th anniversary of the SHOT Show. That's the Shooting, Hunting, and Outdoor Trade Show, the world's largest gun show, where industry insiders compare notes on the newest guns and accessories. We are fortunate to interview today Maj Toure, founder of the new and significant Second Amendment organization Black Guns Matter. Maj is a solutionary hip-hop artist turned Second Amendment activist from North Philadelphia. His following began after he was featured on the cover of Philadelphia Weekly as the Prophet of Philadelphia. He founded the Black Guns Matter movement in 2015 and tours across the country providing Second Amendment education and information to urban communities. Maj has been featured in the New York Times, Breitbart News, National Public Radio, the NRA News, and for his out-of-the-box approach to Second Amendment advocacy. Thank you for joining us today, Maj.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
So, you're the founder of the organization. What motivated you to do that, and what exactly are your goals?
The motivation was just pain, seeing the same issues, guys catching, potentially facing 5 years for possession charges, not because they were bad guys or women, just because they were missing information, and seeing that there's something that we can, educate people around and inform them and solve that problem. We're solutionaries. We deal in applying solutions to problems as opposed to being revolutionaries revolving around the problem. So when seeing that, we saw that we had answers for a thing. And because we knew we had answers, we could effectively, solve some of these problems. The goals are just that, to solve the problem of misinformation, ignorance, so forth and so on in relation to firearms, safety training, the Second Amendment, misinformation in the urban demographic, as well as, just getting more safe, responsible firearm ownership, especially from urban America.
Awesome. Okay. And tell me, what kind of feedback have you been getting? Has it been mostly supportive, or are you taking some heat?
It's overwhelmingly supportive. Most of the people from the areas and the places that I'm from, they have an understanding or want to have an understanding of firearms, but they're missing so much information, and they're desperate for people saying, "Hey, this is what you can do." So because of that, we've been supported tremendously. All of our entire tour has been financed by the people. Our GoFundMe page, our PayPal donations, things of that nature. Mm-hmm. People don't pay for stuff they don't want. So it's been overwhelmingly supported by people that want the information in the community that we're reaching.
Okay, and tell me, what kind of interaction have you had with other gun rights organizations?
We work with anyone that's willing to do the work. That's not afraid to come to tougher areas. Even though the area may be a little rough because of the misinformation, it's still good soil. It's still good American people. With that being the case, we've worked with Pink Pistols. We've worked, I've been on NRA TV, their platforms a bunch of times. We've worked with Com2A over in Boston and Springfield. We've worked with any organization that's willing to do the work in regards to Second Amendment education, safety training. Today, NSSF has been, critical in giving us, allowing us to be here over at SHOT Show. So we're willing to work with any organization that understands the need for what we're doing and is willing to think a little bit outside of the box.
Awesome. Okay. And now, according to your website, you educate and inform the urban communities on their Second Amendment rights and responsibilities. Tell us a little bit about how you go about that and what exactly it is, the nuts and bolts of what you're doing.
Yeah, well, basically, there's a vacuum in regards to the Second Amendment in urban America. It's been told to us that, the Second Amendment isn't for us, it's only for hunting, right, so forth and so on. So it's like, for our thing, this is a human right, that in America, fortunately, we've highlighted for a few hundred years, and to get, urban America to understand that this isn't separate from you. Even though certain politicians have told us historically over time that, firearms are bad, that is a lie. Firearms are a tool to defend, justice, your life, and things of that nature. Having somebody like myself that comes from that environment, that's from that environment, that creates that awesome space for people that the trust factor is there. Okay. So, going to the communities, explaining that, giving the information in the historical context has been key as far as organizing, urban America around the Second Amendment.
Our state-level group, Grassroots North Carolina, and our nationally oriented group, Rights Watch International, have periodically put together coalitions of as many as 39 state and national organizations to defeat federal gun control. What are the prospects of Black Guns Matter joining us on such ventures in the future?
Anybody that's willing to do the work, we're willing to work with. So the prospects are very high. If the work's being done and if there's a opportunity for us to create strategic and creative partnerships, we there. Yeah.
And tell us where you guys stand on some of the issues that are currently under debate. For example, the so-called assault weapons ban has been coming up again, and ditto for the opposition calling for so-called universal background checks. What are your positions on those?
One, there are universal background checks already. They're called 4473s. Every time you purchase a firearm, you go through a criminal and character background search. Every time, regardless of what state you're in. With that being the case, we have those. I think that there's a definition or a word game being played on the American public to convince people that, we need more of, and if the general public doesn't understand what a background check is because they may have never went through the process of purchasing a firearm, they don't know that you get a background check every time, even at, gun shows. So that's the thing as far as that goes. What was the other thing?
Well, the universal background checks, the so-called assault weapon ban would be another one that's a hot topic.
Yeah, so assault weapons, there's no such thing. Assault is an action. A firearm is a tool. With that being the case, that tool will be able to do what the owner of the tool does. If I go to the gym, I'm strong. If I get a spoon and scoop somebody's eyeball out, I can do that. I go to jail for using that tool improperly. We don't ban spoons. And I think that type of, common sense logic is what needs to be applied to Second Amendment and firearms related issues. So the assault ban and things of that nature, That's foolish. I mean, we've had the NFA in position since the 30s. As soon as the NFA, which has severely restricted the ownership and purchase of full automatic firearms, along with that ban, crime has went up. Violent crime has went up. That's not me making that up. That's a stat. That's math, right? Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. So with that being the case, these things aren't actually serving the safety of American people. And I think it's time that we revisit that and see what's most productive for the community, because those things right now have not been.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay, we have been speaking with Maj Toure, founder of the new Second Amendment organization, Black Guns Matter. Maj, please tell people how they can find out more about your organization.
Everybody, we're a simple Google search away. You can check our website, officialblackgunsmatter.com. For everyone that's listening that agrees with some of the things that we're doing, please, we exist with your donations. So if you hit our GoFundMe, gofundme.com/blackgunsmatter. But again, we can get all of our social media, officialblackgunsmatter.com.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. It's excellent to have you aboard in the fight. And to be perfectly honest, our organization will be reaching out to you for coalition work in the near future, especially on federal gun control issues.
Absolutely.
And folks, you have been listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom today on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7, WilmingtonBigTalker.com. We will resume after a short break. My name is Paul Vallone, and you are listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom today on Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7 WilmingtonBigTalker.com, sponsored by Hyatt Guns, America's largest gun shop. Check them out at HyattGuns.com. In our first segment, we started discussing some of the exciting new products introduced at this year's Shooting, Hunting, and Outdoor Trade Show, or SHOT Show. For photos of, by the way, you can check out our Facebook page at Guns, Politics, and Freedom, where, incidentally, you can find photos of me with famed shooter Jerry Michalak. Now, let's embark on, I guess, my entirely subjective review of what I consider to be some of the coolest stuff we found at the SHOT Show. Ever since I've been living on the ridgetop I call Paradise with excellent fields of fire, I have been shopping for a rifle to make sure that I can take full advantage of those fields of fire. Like many others lately, I have been thinking 1,200-plus yard precision rifle in 6.5 Creedmoor. Frankly, I've been shopping around for a course in long-range riflery, long something I have considered my weak point. But also, like many others, I don't have $5,000 or $6,000 to spend on a rifle for that course. In a moderate price range, at the SHOT Show, I saw two rifles that tend to stand out. The first was the Ruger Precision Rifle that's available in .308 Winchester, 6.5 Creedmoor or 6mm Creedmoor. Beyond a price range of only $1,600, and I've actually seen rifles advertised for closer to $1,300, I was impressed by the smoothness of the bolt action, its multi-magazine interface that fits a variety of magazines, and interchangeable stocks and pistol grips which fit AR-15 pattern components. I was almost sold on it, at least until I found Kimber's new Advanced Tactical SOC2 SG. SOC, I guess that stands for Special Operations Command, which is only slightly more expensive. I guess the MSRP is running $2,450, but guarantees sub 0.5 minute of angle accuracy. Yep, Lots of rifles guarantee 1 minute of angle, but not so many, especially in this price range, guarantee less than half of a minute of angle. That's half an inch at 100 yards approximately. So Ruger also had some other interesting introductions, including its PC carbine, that's pistol caliber carbine, not politically correct, which resembles an updated version of, think of a marriage between Ruger's old .44 Magnum carbine and Marlin's Camp carbine that they used to offer in 9mm and .45 ACP. The only kicker here is that it's available only in 9mm. I pushed them for a 10mm version. But it's cooler than its predecessors by virtue of being a breakdown rifle in which the barrel can be removed. On a more mixed note, Ruger has come up with a Glock-sized 9mm compact, very budget-friendly, called the Security 9. On the upside, it has an excellent 5.5-pound trigger, points well. By that I mean it lacks the Luger-like grip angle of the Glock that causes 1911 shooters and others to index high out of the holster, and it delivers 15 rounds of 9mm in an eminently shootable package with a low MSRP of only $380. On the downside, Ruger seems to want to have its cake and eat it too, at least with respect to the gun's safety, which is where a 1911 thumb safety would be, but is far too tiny to be easily disengaged in a hurry. The R&D guy I spoke with said it was for novices who want a manual safety, but I argue that it is actually the worst of both worlds, since the gun can't be carried with the safety on, at least not with any expectation of being able to flick it off in a hurry, but it could easily be placed on accidentally, rendering the gun unfireable. I suggest Ruger go to Smith & Wesson's M&P model, in which they offer their guns both with or without a thumb safety at the buyer's preference, and the thumb safety is usable where a 1911 thumb safety ought to be. It falls naturally and can easily be disengaged. On the other good news front, Para is back, sort of. You may recall that Para Ordnance revolutionized the 1911 market back in the 80s and 90s with its double-stack, high-capacity versions of steel-framed 1911 pistols. They became all the rage in IPSC, IPSC, or now USPSA as it's more popularly called, until recently in the 1990s when Strayer Trip and some other polymer-framed pistols kind of supplanted them. Eventually, Para moved from Canada to Pineville, North Carolina, just south of Charlotte, actually almost part of South Charlotte, and became Para USA and part of the Freedom Group that includes Remington, at least until Freedom Group closed down the shop and ended production of the Para in, I guess it was around 2014 or 2015. Now, in recent years, Remington, like everybody else, has been producing 1911s. So they really piqued my interest when, just before the show, Remington sent a press release describing its new high-capacity 1911s. So I hunted them down at the SHOT Show, and I asked them whether these were the Para guns reborn. And the answer is yes, sort of. They're being produced in Remington's new mega factory in Huntsville, Alabama, but using Para's old machinery, and are being marketed under the Remington 1911 R1 roll mark. I was not able to get a clear answer yet on whether the magazines are interchangeable with the old Para guns. But these appear to be very nice high-capacity 1911s indeed. There are several and service and competition models to choose from, but I was especially enamored of the one named after Remington's top competitive shooter, Travis Tomasi, who was at the show, incidentally. The Tomasi Custom is reportedly exactly the same gun he shoots in competition, minus a trigger job. They did allow for that. And better yet, this 18-round 40 caliber 1911 with lightning cuts, competition magwell, and all the bells and whistles you would expect in a USPSA limited class gun goes for only $1,700, making it far cheaper than other guns in the class. Now, I've been thinking of switching from production to limited class in USPSA, and personally, I think this just might be the gun. Elsewhere, it's gratifying to see that 10mm is making a comeback. Originally developed in the 1980s, the powerful 10mm cartridge was popularized by the highly acclaimed, but unfortunately very short-lived, Bren 10, advocated by the famous Jeff Cooper, or endorsed by the famous Jeff Cooper, and featured in Miami Vice. I guess Sonny Crockett carried one for a couple of seasons. Smith & Wesson eventually incorporated the 10mm into its third-generation pistols as the Smith & Wesson 1006, and the FBI adopted it as the Smith & Wesson 1076. Unfortunately, the 10mm proved to be a handful for the FBI, and they eventually switched to a light version that evolved into the 40 S&W. Meanwhile, the powerful 10mm cartridge beat the daylights out of early pistols such as the Colt Delta Elite 1911 and others. Throughout the years, the popularity of the 10mm has waxed and waned, but it's maintained a cadre of die-hard supporters, including Ted Nugent, who reportedly carries 1911s in 10mm. I personally went to 10mm for my Woods gun a few years back, settling on the Kimber Eclipse Custom 2 in 10mm, which I feed the very stout Buffalo Bore 220 grain lead hardcast bullet that moves right out there into 41 Magnum territory, the lower reaches of 41 Magnum. Now, believe it or not, using hand loads for that gun, I have been able to place 5 rounds into just 7/8 of an inch off a sandbag at 25 yards. Yes, that's 7/8 of an inch. So, judging by this year's show, 10mm is back with a vengeance. We're going to take a short break here, after which we will discuss a couple of other interesting 10mm that I think you may find fascinating. Meanwhile, you are listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom on Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7, WilmingtonBigTalker.com. We're going to take a short break, after which we will resume with a discussion of the exciting SHOT Show in Las Vegas and some of the new products introduced there. My name is Paul Vallone, and you are listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom today on Wilmington's Big Talker, 106.7, WilmingtonBigTalker.com. Sponsored by Hyatt Guns, America's largest gun shop. Check them out at HyattGuns.com. As we noted before our break, judging by this year's SHOT Show, 10mm is back with a vengeance, with most 1911s manufacturers offering 10mm options. Among the many, I saw 10mm from Ed Brown, Kimber, Remington, Ruger, and many others, some of them in 6-inch long slide models. I especially like the Dan Wesson Bruin model. Interestingly, Sig Sauer is now offering a 10mm version of its high-end Legion Sig 220. Quite accidentally, I ran into Bruce Gray of Gray Guns, purveyor of many Sig aftermarket parts, and he told me how he had inspired Sig to produce the pistol. Ironically, this month's Firearms News contains a piece on the gun and its excellent trigger, which they say was designed by Bruce Gray. Check out his stuff at grayguns.com. FYI, the Legion 10mm is pricey, on the order of $1,900, presumably because the frame is made of steel rather than the usual alloy. Another highly interesting 10mm is being offered by Lone Wolf Distributors. As you may or may not know, in addition to many other products, Lone Wolf does everything Glock. whether frames, parts, or complete guns. Personally, I've never been a big Glock shooter. Yes, they're great guns. The problem is their grip angle. At about 22 degrees off square, shooters accustomed to 1911s and other guns with more square grips tend to index high out of the holster with Glocks unless they develop the habit of breaking their wrist slightly. Moreover, I've seen any number of female shooters who don't have as much wrist strength experience malfunctions with otherwise utterly reliable Glocks. I want a Glock 40 MOS. All right, it's 10 millimeter, 15 round capacity, long slide with a slide cut for a reflex sight, perfect woods gun, but I keep shying away because the grip frame is, well, Glock. But I do believe all that's about to change. I ran into Dan Shepard, Research and Development Manager for Lone Wolf, and he introduced me to the new line of Glock, or more accurately, Glock-compatible frames about to be rolled out by his company, and I'm impressed. I was so impressed that I interviewed Dan so that he can tell you more about Lone Wolf's new products himself, and you can hear that interview in just a moment. But first, I want to wax poetic about the 10 millimeter frame he put so much time and effort into. Due out in February, Lone Wolf's 10 millimeter Glock frame is light, thin, with less of the blockiness of a Glock grip, and distinctly un-Glock-like in its grip angle. To be frank, I cannot wait to either build or order a Lone Wolf 10 millimeter Glock on this frame. So let's let Dan Shepard describe the product of his hard work. As promised, here we are at the SHOT Show, and we have been fortunate enough to run into the Research and Development Manager for Lone Wolf Distributors, Dan Shepard, and Dan has some wonderful stuff on Glocks. Now, Dan, as I said to you earlier, I have never been a big Glock shooter. The grip angle is always wrong. I index high out of the holster. Tell me what you guys have done to solve that problem.
Well, the first thing that we did is we listened to our customers as far as grip angles, the size of it, anything that they didn't like about the Glock. Because let's face it, most people will buy a Glock, and the first thing they do is they go to their gunsmith or they go to a store that specializes in modifications, and they modify it. Well, you don't need to do that. If you want to build something completely custom for yourself, for your person, well, then you might want to take a look at Lone Wolf Distributors. Basically, we're offering 16 different frames right now. I know that sounds like a lot, but if you go to a 17 Glock, everybody knows that's a full-size 9mm. Now you can have a 17 slide with a full-size lower receiver. You can also have a 17 slide with a compact lower receiver. Or you can have a 17 slide with a subcompact lower receiver. Now we'll switch to compacts. Everybody knows the Glock 19, which happens to be my personal favorite. Glock 19 slide with a standard compact lower receiver, Glock 19 slide with a full-size lower receiver, or a Glock 19 slide with a subcompact lower receiver. And here's the transition. Somebody will say, I can shoot a 19. I can shoot it all day long, and it's the best. Unfortunately, I have big hands. Okay, we can offer, like I said, a 19 slide with a full-size grip. Tailored, exactly what you want. Or, I love the Model 17. It's my favorite. But I can't conceal weapon carry it because the handle sticks out, it's too large. How about a 17 slide with a subcompact grip? And everybody's been asking for a couple of years. We did the same thing with the 10mm and the 45 lower receiver. You're talking about the smallest grip, angled as close as you can get to a 1911. We offer it in the full-size grip, and we also offer it in the 29.
There is the key, close as possible to a 1911. I picked this thing up, and I don't index high. It just forms perfectly to my hand.
And it does. The 10mm, I've done a lot of work on it. I think this is the best that we have to offer right here.
With the integral magwell, by the way, we should note, making it perfect for something like USPSA Limited.
And that's where we actually wanted to tailor as far as if you buy a lower receiver, you're in, you're set. All of our lower receivers are going to come with the magwell, except for the subcompact versions. You don't want a magwell on there anyways. We did come up with an ambidextrous magazine catch. Left-handed people, right-handed people, no problem. And because there's 16 different frames, what that number represents is textured and non-textured. If you like our texture, great. If you don't like your texture, I can do my own stippling. fine. You can use your own stippling. We also offer laser engraved stippling. Somebody, if they want Scooby-Doo tattooed onto it, it's not a problem. So we try and tailor to everybody's needs, and these lower receivers, we bridge the gap. We have an adapter piece on the very front, so they're Gen 3, Gen 4 compatible. I don't care what slide you have, our frames will fit it.
Awesome. Well, okay, Dan, you have made a believer out of me, and actually I will be ordering one of these because, as I said, I want one in 10 millimeters, something fierce. So thank you very much. We appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Elsewhere in the SHOT Show, the hot trends are lighter AR-15 patterned rifles, something my wife Lori is especially looking for, striker-fired polymer 9mm from every manufacturer under the sun, and then sound suppressors, and still more sound suppressors. So I decided to fill a hole in my knowledge by speaking with several suppressor manufacturers, especially Surefire, and a relatively new suppressor manufacturer, Sig Sauer. It was at SIG that I started talking with their R&D team about the gun they introduced and which I bought just recently, namely the SIG MCX Rattler. Now, if you're like me, you're a fan of submachine guns. Unfortunately, a voice vote amendment to the 1986 McClure-Volkmer Act made recent production full autos illegal for private citizens to own and sent prices for the pre-1986 guns into the stratosphere. Short-barreled rifles, or SBRs, can be a pain. You have to go through a 6-month or more process with the BATF, and many states and local governments have restricted them. Moreover, if you want to carry a defensive rifle in your car, there are numerous places you can't take it. For example, in North Carolina, you can carry a handgun concealed, but not an SBR. You can keep a handgun in a closed compartment in a locked motor vehicle while transiting educational property, but not a rifle. We could go on, but the bottom line is that there are far fewer restrictions for a handgun in terms of carry than for a rifle, particularly if it's classified as a short-barreled rifle. Enter the pistol stabilizing brace, intended to help our wounded warriors shoot relatively heavy AR-15 pistols. People discovered that they also make excellent shoulder stocks. I won't go into the whole saga, but suffice to say that the ATF right now is saying that it is within the law to shoulder that stabilizing brace and use it as a shoulder stock. So a number of AR pistols have made use of that determination and now enter the SIG MCX Rattler, originally a machine gun in .300 blackout caliber, ballistically similar to 7.62x39. SIG is marketing versions of the Rattler as SBRs and as a pistol with an extendable stabilizing brace. I'm going to tell you the Rattler is phenomenal. And given this is the second time I recommended a SIG, no, I am not getting paid by SIG. Billed by SIG as the world's most compact rifle, the Rattler is a short-action version of the MCX with a 5.5-inch barrel that, when collapsed, shrinks to a length of just over 19 inches. For a defensive rifle, it doesn't get any better than this. Moreover, according to SIG's engineers, the short barrels and the resulting dampened harmonics mean that the gun is capable of minute-of-angle accuracy out to rifle distances. In my book, the SIG MCX Rattler is the defensive rifle of the year. My name is Paul Vallone. You have been listening to Guns, Politics, and Freedom on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7, WilmingtonBigTalker.com, where each Sunday at 5 p.m. as part of the Sunday Night Political Power Block, we give you the ammunition to better defend your gun rights. Please check out our sponsor, Hyatt Guns, America's largest gun shop, at HyattGuns.com, and I encourage you to check out my website at GunsPoliticsAndFreedom.com.